Commissioner. Sorry, Commissioner. Obviously, one of your priorities is protecting children against child abuse, but sexual abuse.
Yeah.
We saw when we, took evidence before that obviously this is increasing very worryingly. I wondered, what is the position in the in the metropolitan area, in terms of grooming gangs of the sort that are very topical at the moment that we've seen in other cities? How much of a part of this particular function does that take up for you? Is it something you see in the metropolitan area, or is it growing, or that particular part that we saw in, for example, Rochdale, Rotherham, Bristol, Oxford?
I'm afraid I can't tell you how many sort of active, and they would be proactive investigations of that sort that we have, but because awareness has gone up so much recently, but within our staff and also, of course, within other public authorities and in the public mind as well, you will perhaps have seen some coverage earlier this week in relation to East London and concerns around children in Stratford. Doesn't suggest there's a network, but it does suggest that children are being groomed out of particular kind of locations, given, I'll come away from the specific, but, encouraged to get involved in criminality or sexual relationships through suites and offers of this and that and the other, and people actually just being interested in them perhaps when nobody else is. It's a really complicated area. I don't know how many current investigations we have. It is growing, there's no doubt about that, but a large amount of the growth, in my view, is about raised awareness.
Is about?
It's about raised awareness, undoubtedly. And it's just, it's not the same phenomenon, but it's slightly similar to, the viewing of indecent images. You will have seen perhaps a report not long ago that suggested there are up to 900,000 people in this country who are either would be classified as paedophiles or have an interest in children sexually and will be perhaps potentially be viewing child sexual abuse images. For us, we have an ever-increasing number of referrals in relation to that, and I'm expecting to have future referrals in relation to organised or semi-organised grooming of children. But I don't think this is a sort of a phenomenon that was invented in the last few years. It really wasn't. It's been part of our society probably for centuries and centuries and centuries. It's hard to know exactly whether it's really going up and what's changing.
Yes, but I'm talking specifically where we've had these shocking situations that have seemingly been tolerated for about 20 or 30 years. In fact, the time is actually going further and further back in time. So you're saying that pretty much those sort of patterns are not really happening in London? Or are you saying...
what sort of pattern?
Well, for example, where we've had particularly girls, white girls, being abused by mostly Asian men, basically in quite organised groups that we've seen over the north and in the Midlands. Is that actually happening in London?
We've undoubtedly had and do have now investigations into organised grooming of children, yes.
And where is that happening in London?
I genuinely can't tell you today, and I'm not sure it would be appropriate for me while we have a proactive investigation going on to say it's in such.
I don't think you could answer that specifically,
but
Commissioner.
That's not really.
No, I think with respect,
I understand the trend of your debate. No, I understand your thrust.
Because what we don't want again is yet another situation where people are saying, well, where were the police?
So I'm not aware, personally, I'm not aware of a matter which has been brought to our attention where we are sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, we've had some knowledge of that for decades or years and years and years. What I am aware of is this is a current and definite phenomenon in the country, not precisely, I wouldn't share your words of describing it, but children being groomed in organised or semi...
Why would you not share my way of describing it when it seems quite clear?
Well, I would describe it as children are vulnerable to grooming. That is going on. Sometimes that's in a very organised and sometimes in a semi-organised way. And it is happening in London as well. And we have a number of very skilled investigators who are working on proactive investigations in that field.
Okay. I would say that I don't quite understand why you can't take my characterisation, which is absolutely factual and clear, why you don't accept that.
I'm just saying it's not words I would use.
The disagreement in phrasing that you think you've heard, Peter, and then we
Yes,
can kind of finish it at that.
I have to, yes, exactly. I'm not just constantly trying to make a point, one that you might think I would typically make, but the fact is that it's to say that I don't recognise this situation and to somehow smooth it over is what led, Commissioner, to thousands of young girls being shockingly abused over about 20 years at least.
Leave it at that.
No,
and
no,
just,
no.
and just breathe. No, no, that's
the
you
boot
make,
were on the other foot, Commissioner. If this, quite rightly, and quite rightly too, if this were groups of white men abusing specifically Muslim young girls, this would be treated probably as a hate crime, and also it would be treated very specifically in a particular way, which it should be. But why are you therefore simply not taking on board what is obviously the fact that it's reported every day?
okay,
shall I
yeah, if you'd like to respond to that last point.
So
I
I
think
may
it's
have
not
misheard
unfair.
and misunderstood what you said, but